Get more now on these ongoing negotiations. Jamal Abdi joins us in our Washington studio. He's a policy director with the National Iranian American Council here in the nation's capital. Jamal, thanks for being on the program with us.
My pleasure.
So let's talk about what the issues are. What is the holdup? But the bottom line is they're still talking, and that can only be a good thing as far as progress, potential progress.
I see this as a positive sign, given where we were just a few hours ago, where it sounded like the parties were ready to sort of go their separate ways and issue a statement of commitments that they've met so far. Now they're staying overnight. To me, that is a sign that there is a framework deal within reach. There are still, they've gotten through so many issues. There's still one or two small issues that need to be resolved.
So let's talk about those one or two issues, because it really seems, Jamal, that from day one, we had the same issues.
Well, these are, so the two issues left. The big one is UN sanctions. So the sanctions, in the United States, Congress says, oh, sanctions brought Iran to the table, which I think is a little bit overblown. But in these talks, the idea was we trade sanctions for Iranian nuclear concessions. The problem is the United States isn't going to trade in those sanctions. It's going to start with the UN. The US and the EU have their own sanctions. They would suspend them. The question is, how do we deal with those UN sanctions, which carry enormous symbolic importance inside of Iran? Hassan Rouhani, the president of Iran, was critical of the Ahmadinejad administration's failure to prevent the nuclear sanctions at the UN. And so getting those sanctions lifted would be a big win that they could be able to sell at home. The question is, okay, how do you do that in a way that if Iran potentially cheats in an agreement, how do you put those sanctions back into place? There's a disagreement between, okay, do you have it be an automatic reimposition of sanctions, or as the Russians would prefer, because they sit at the P5, the table to vote for those sanctions, they would prefer to be able to have a vote to reimpose those sanctions. And this has become a contentious issue, not just between the parties and Iran, but within the P5+1 as well.
Okay, so sanctions, one big issue, but there's another one, and it's about Iran's capability as far as uranium enrichment goes, and whether that enriched uranium should be shipped. Explain it to me. Maybe I have it all wrong, but it's something to do with its capability with this enriched uranium.
Yeah, well, so the bottom line for this deal for the P5+1 is they want Iran to be at a one-year breakout. So if Iran broke out, they could have enough fuel for a bomb. It would take a full year. In order to get to that, there are a number of different issues. How many centrifuges are spinning? How much stockpile they are allowed to hold on to? If they have a bigger stockpile, you need less centrifuges. There's sort of this formulation that needs to be figured out. What came out was that one of the Iranian negotiators said, we're not actually willing to ship out the uranium, but we are willing to downblend it into a form that's not usable for weapons use. My sense is that that issue has been largely resolved, that actually would work in this formulation, whether it's downblended or shipped out. There are ways to fix that, and that's probably not the major sticking point at this moment.
And even if they do agree on some type of framework within the next 24 hours, Jamal, there's still a huge amount of work ahead until that June 30th deadline. If they resolve the sanctions issue, are we pretty much in the clear, and it's just a matter of technical details that have to be worked out until June 30th?
Yeah, and June 30th, that's the real deadline. This March 31st was an aspirational target to try to iron out, self-imposed, to iron out these details. I think it's going to depend on what they actually get. If and when they get something tomorrow, I think it's going to depend. I think the main sort of the tough political decisions are being made right now. The technical issues, once you just get the experts in to iron these things out, yes, it's going to be extremely complex. You're talking about nuclear physics and UN international law and Byzantine, sanctions law, international financial markets, all of these things. They need to be ironed out, but the tough political decisions are hopefully happening right now as we speak. So
what's going to happen if there is no framework agreement announced by tomorrow?
Well, they've come so far. I mean, they started this process with hundreds of issues. I mean, 18 months ago, to imagine we would be here where there's one or two issues separating them, I think would be unfathomable for people. So I don't think that they give up and go home over this last remaining issue. I think they try to nail down as much as they can, and then they figure out, how do we overcome this last remaining hurdle with the 3 months that we do technically have left in the talks?
And quickly, your prediction, what's going to happen tomorrow?
You're really putting me on the spot. I'm an optimist. I think just looking at how much they've accomplished, I think that they've got to get the deal tomorrow, and it's within reach. It's so close, you know, you can taste it.
Nice. Thank you so much, Jamal Abdi. We certainly appreciate your time.